It is Monday, September 3rd, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was an absent get your ass kicked at jiu-jitsu Monday. I did not go to jiu-jitsu at all today. Had the opportunity at 6 a.m., was not able to do that. I had an opportunity at 12 a.m., or 12 p.m. rather, and I was not able to get out of what I was doing in order to take advantage of that. So, no jiu-jitsu today. However, there is tomorrow to do it. So, and hopefully by then I'll actually be done with the project that's been holding up pretty much everything else in my life. And so, yeah, I'm very, very close to cresting that mountain, and once it is crested and everything is situated for the future, I will be much happier. I can't tell you, man. It's been a lot of pain in the ass. I found out really quick who I could kind of depend on for such work, and it's been an interesting experience. I'll just say that much. I don't know if I'm going to do it again like this next year. I'm thinking that either A, I'll have it down so well that it'll take me half the time, and I'm already over all the trepidation of actually getting out there and what I'm going to have to do and whatnot, because I've done it now twice. I think it'll go a lot quicker and a lot easier. I mean, it was a lot of pain in the ass, and I spent entirely too much time waiting around on other people. It wasn't one of those things that I could hand off to other people and expect them to do the job that I wanted done. So it was unfortunate, but there are things in life like that you actually have to take care of on your own, or relatively so. I mean, I've had a little bit of help here and there, and I'm very thankful for the help that I have gotten. However, it always seems to be just something missing. Where the person that I had helping wasn't watching something specific, and that I thought was really important and that didn't get done right. And it's always your own hands that things are best handled by. And it's really funny to me, that as simple as everything is getting as far as, contacting people and making products and all that other stuff, it's like, the more simple things get, or the easier things get, the less shit you can do. I don't know. It seems that way, that there's always a new tax or a new fee or a new this or a new that, prohibiting or further inhibiting your ability to be free. I don't expect the same to happen in crypto. I think a lot of people are adjusting for the market to be dominated in such a way, but I think the one thing that I keep coming back to on this show, at least, is that without us as the miners and the exchange operators and so on and so forth, that kind of diminishes the appeal of it in my book. I mean, at least to me. See, as far as I'm concerned, public miners satisfies one of the biggest problems that we've had in this time, and that's the ability for the average person to simply participate in whatever software or hardware project may be, and be reaping the reward of actually participating. You've previously you had to get a job, or you had to write a whiz-bang piece of software, start a company that somebody wanted to buy. We've kind of eliminated that. We've skipped it up to where you could put the digital product out there, and if people want to use it, they will. I mean, the barrier for entry has never been lower, and yet it seems to me that there's all this talk of blockchain again. I don't know if you guys remember back in like I want to say like 2015, 2016, there was all this talk of blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. And people talking about blockchain without mentioning Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or proof of work or miners. And all of these things are intrinsically linked. You know, without miners mining, you don't get a fucking blockchain. And without a Bitcoin, you don't have anything to incentivize the miners. So, again, it seems like there's a lot of mimetic adjustment. They kind of want to erase the words Bitcoin and erase the word miner out of the whole equation. And you know, you can just do that layer 2 bullshit, you know, and do that off-chain bullshit. Leave the blockchain to the big boys. And I find that so fucking humorous because there's kids out there that are not on the same page as you motherfuckers, and they're just going to release their shit. And you're going to bust one of them, and the rest of them are going to take a look at how the guy got busted, and they're going to go, okay, we're not going to do that next time. Let's do this other thing. Because as long as you keep trying to kick people out, you'll be taking away the value of it. Yeah. It's the way it works. And, you know, the process of mining is so important to the aspect of like how the operation of cryptocurrencies that people are willing to steal hash rate from other people who aren't even miners, who probably aren't even involved in cryptocurrencies at all, right through their browser. That should tell you something about how important having a network is. And so trying to get rid of that network by demeaning it, talking shit about it, and trying to inhibit participation in it, while you yourself are investing heavily in trying to mine, seems very, very disingenuous. Seems kind of like an asshole move to me. But, you know, that's capitalism for you. If you're stupid enough to believe them when they tell you, oh, blockchain is what's important, instead of saying that, oh, the blockchain is not anything separate from a database without a miner, so you should be able to go in and you go and be a miner and participate in that. You know, with that difference of memetics and that difference of ideology concerning cryptocurrencies, it's obvious to me which ones are going to win and which ones are going to lose out. And I think the ones that people are willing to mine are going to win. And the ones that people are less willing to mine are going to lose. And that includes Bitcoin. You know, there's plenty of synthetic barriers to entry. You know, I keep running into people talking about, oh, I used to be a miner. I'm not mining anymore. I still have my hardware. I'm waiting for it to get profitable again. Give me a fucking break, kid. Turn the shit on and run it. I mean, otherwise you're just losing money on it. It's just wasted money. You might as well bought dirt with it and just, you know, watch stuff grow in it. And that actually give you more use than an idle or non-operational miner. I don't know why people are so easy to dissuade from things like freedom. I mean, if it's worth having, you're going to have to fight for it, and you're going to have to fight to keep it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing that's changed about that the entire time I've been alive. And so I expect the same to be true of cryptocurrencies and remaining free. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into our first dance for the evening. I'm thinking a little Dark Angel, Time Does Not Heal. Here on Coin Metal, first dance. And that was Nothing Face with Hidden Hands. Alright. Well, you know, I was going through the Twitter feed, and I gotta tell you, there is so much good shit going on. Well, I don't know about good shit, but, you know, it's stuff that I want to cover. I mean, and I'm completely at a loss as to which one to start with. I've been seeing a lot about HoloCoin, and I'm not at all familiar with it. But I did hunt down their white paper, and it is about 13 pages, and I think that we can get through it, only because, there's the barrier of my reading math, which there is a little bit of it. And let's see here. I'll just go with the explanation on the maths part, because it does have one. And let's see here. I'm just going through here and, looking at some of the information herein. And it looks like a lot of it's kind of really technical. Well, we may just go for it. Because, like I said, I've been kind of curious about it. And, I dug it up. So here it is. But we do have a whole bunch of other stuff I really want to get into. And would probably much rather get into. But, we do have to cover coins. And I would rather people be oriented, at least as best I can do. Again, I'm not going to be reading all the maths and all that other bullshit. But I'd really like to get at least a general outline about what this project is all about. And kind of, maybe give some sort of word on it. I don't know. Anyway, here it is. This is HoloChain, Scalable Agent-Centric Distributed Computing. And this is on their GitHub website for holocoin-proto holochain.pdf. Abstract. This is written by Eric Braun, Nicholas Luck, Arthur Brock, and Scepter LLC. I don't know who Scepter is. It's CEP, or I'm sorry, Sepler, CEPLR, whoever that is. But yes, 3 penises at least. Abstract. We present a scalable, agent-centric distributed computing platform. We use a formalism to characterize distributed systems, show how it applies to some existing distributed systems, and demonstrate the benefits of shifting from data-centric to agent-centric models. We present a detailed formal specification for the HoloChain system, along with an analysis of its systemic integrity, capacity for evolution, total system computational complexity, implications for use cases, and current implementation status. 1. Introduction. Distributed computing platforms have achieved a new level of viability with the advent of 2 foundational cryptographic tools: secure hashing algorithms and public key encryption. They have provided solutions to key problems in distributed computing: verifiable, tamper-proof data for sharing state across nodes in the distributed system, and confirmation of data provenance via digital signature algorithms. The former is achieved by hash chains, where monotonic data stores are rendered intrinsically tamper-proof and thus confidently shared across nodes, by including hashes of previous entries in subsequent entries. The latter is achieved by combining cryptographic encryption of hashes of data and using public keys themselves as the addresses of agents, thus allowing other agents in the system to mathematically verify the data's source. Though hash chains help solve the problem of independently acting agents reliably sharing state, we see 2 very different approaches in their use, which have deep systemic consequences. These approaches are demonstrated by two of today's canonical distributed systems. Number 1, Git. In Git, all nodes can update their hash chains as they see fit. The degree of overlapping shared state of chain entries, known as commit objects, across all nodes is not managed by Git, but rather explicitly by action of the agent, making pull requests and doing merges. We call this approach agent-centric because of its focus on allowing nodes to share independently evolving data realities. Number 2, Bitcoin. In Bitcoin and blockchains in general, the problem is understood to be that of figuring out how to choose one block of transactions among the many variants being experienced by the mining nodes, as they collect transactions from clients in different orders, and committing that single variant to the single globally shared chain. We call this approach data-centric because of its focus on creating a single shared data reality among all nodes. We claim that this fundamental origin stance results directly in the most significant limitation of the blockchain, scalability. This limitation is widely known, and many solutions have been offered. Holochain offers a way forward by directly addressing the root data-centric assumptions of the blockchain approach. Number 2, prior work. This paper builds largely on recent work in cryptographic distributed systems and distributed hash tables and multi-agent systems. Ethereum, Wood, EIP 150, DHT, Kademlia, Bennett IPFS. To do discussion and more references here. Number 3, distributed systems. Formalism. We define a simple, generalized model of a distributed system, omega, using hash chains as follows. Let n be the set of elements n1, n2, onto nn, participating in the system. Call the elements of n nodes or agents. Number 2, let each node n consist of set n with elements O1, O2, call elements. Okay, that's all kinds of math and bullshit. Blah 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 blah. Header and node sequence of headers creates a chain tree in the general case by linking each header to the previous headers and the transaction. Let be the function. Blah blah blah. So this is actually like a technical description of the business. Properties having relative yeah, okay, transition. Okay, so first we separate the agent state into a cryptographic explanation. This formalism allows us to model separately key aspects of agents. First, we separate the agent's state into a cryptographically secured hash chain, part X, and another part that holds arbitrary data, D. Then we split the process of updating the state into 2 steps. 1, the validation of new transactions, T, through the validation function, and this is just further explanation of the technical bullshit. Yeah. Let's get past all the maths. Generalized distribution. Yeah. We have a more in-depth application of formalism to Omega Git as an exercise for the reader. However, we underscored the difference between Omega Bitcoin and Omega Git lies in the former's constraint of, oh Jesus Christ, a whole bunch of other bullshit. Yeah. I'm trying to get to an actual, regular description without all the maths in it. just because. Let's see where we're at. We're on page 7. If we, yeah, this is a bit more technical than is readable publicly, I suppose. At least by me. I'm sure somebody else could do it. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. Verify elements of X data to, yeah. So this is looking like a bust for us being able to read this business. Use cases we now present a few. Social media we consider microblogging. You know what? I'm done. You know, as soon as a project proposes to start thinking for the user, you know, as far as like what they're supposed to be using it for or what they can use it for, I kind of lose interest. You know, in a lot of projects that are really, application specific, I lose complete interest. Because I'm assured in my mind at least that there's probably a cheaper way to do it just using an altcoin. I mean, really, there's no big thing that you need to have in order to use cryptocurrencies in your business. You don't need a whole bunch of advisors. You don't need a whole bunch of other fucking third-party businesses in order to do this shit. Get a fucking wallet. Now you can take cryptocurrency payments. From there, you can learn how to most efficiently convert the cryptocurrency into whatever currency you want, or simply hold on to it, or determine the policy for yourself. All of these projects that are talking about, they're going to be, doing micropayment this, and they're all proposing to think for you. They're all proposing to take some of that choice away from you. And I like I said, I have no use for this shit. When I want to use cryptocurrency, I evaluate the options available to me, and then I use it. And that's it. I don't let, my love for some particular coin or whatever determine what I'm going to use. I use what is advantageous to me. See, that puts the onus on the service provider, whether it be Bitcoin miners or Bitcoin Cash miners or Ethereum miners or Verge currency miners or Dogecoin miners. They're all providing the service of processing the transactions on that network, right? So the more time and energy they dedicate to that purpose, as opposed to, say, talking shit on Twitter or whatever about other currencies or other projects to make themselves look better, the better they probably will be over the long term. That's one of the things that I pay attention to most about a currency is, do they spend more time talking down other projects than they do talking up what they can do? See, because one of the things that helps me in deciding which currency I'm going to use at any one time is information about that coin. Now, I could use Bitcoin, and I could even use segregated witness if I so chose. Or I could use other options. And honestly, Verge currency is a lot cheaper than using Bitcoin, even with segregated witness. And honestly, with regard to capacity and whatnot, Verge is a lot faster. It also has about 20 times the amount of capacity. Oh, I bet you didn't know that. Yeah. The blocks on the Verge currency network are 1 megabyte. But confirmation times is 30 seconds. That's twice a minute. That's 20 times faster than the Bitcoin network. Or at least 20 times the amount of capacity as the Bitcoin network. So when you start viewing things in that context, the idea of being in love with any one particular cryptocurrency, it loses all value. I don't want to be bound in by some fucking bullshit smart contract with one currency or another. I want to hold in whatever currency I decide may be beneficial for me to do at that time, and I want to be able to transition to whatever currency I decide at a later time would be more advantageous for me to hold my money in. And I don't want to have to ask anybody's fucking permission. I don't need to actually identify myself in order to do that. Knowing who I am doesn't facilitate the transaction any easier than anybody else's transaction, so it's completely immaterial to the transaction itself, and that's that whole censorshiplessness or censorship resistance bullshit going on. Is that people want to mine my shit because I've offered enough of a fee for them to bother including me into a block. You know, and if it's not enough, if it's too much on one network, I can go to another. You know, if Bitcoin costs, you know, $6 to do my transaction, and I can do the same transaction on the Verge currency network for less than a penny, which one do you think I'm gonna fucking do? I'm not out to make Bitcoin miners rich. They need to be about making themselves rich, and that means running a variant of Bitcoin that has enough capacity for me to be able to perform my transactions on their network cheaply, quickly, and on-chain. Because I can do on-chain transactions on Verge and kick their ass all day long. So, the choice is up to them to either get in fucking gear or watch Verge and Dogecoin eat their fucking lunch. I mean, and you know, there's a time when I looked at altcoins and said, no, why bother with altcoins? And then I figured it out that they're competition. They're competition not only for Bitcoin, but for one another too. And they're at competition for your business. And if they're not bothering to compete for your business, then they really don't need to be used by you. You know, it's like this whole thing with CSW and Bitcoin Cash. Apparently, the Bitcoin Cash community, by and large, is simply ignoring him now. And from what I understand, a lot of people have outright blocked him. That are kind of high up. I mean, like Roger Ver kind of people, or Rick Falk-Vigny. You know, these bigger heads in the Bitcoin Cash space have been kind of turning their backs on him. And you know, I saw it coming about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when he first came out with this whole N-chain thing, that he was most likely going to be kicking some people in the shins, and that they would just be kicking him back in the shin. And there are a lot more people to kick him in the shin than he has feet to kick other people in the shin. That's all there is to it. But yeah, so I think that going forward, the coins and projects that are more inclusive or seek to include more of the public in them are going to be the ones that are successful over the longer term. You know, because they're paying attention to what makes their coin worthwhile, and that's us. They have to motivate us to mine their coins. They have to motivate us to use their coins in commerce. You know, you can kind of tell people's drives by how they talk about cryptocurrency. When they talk about Bitcoin as being, you know, something like gold, or no. That person does not know what Bitcoin is all about. It's not fucking gold. What makes Bitcoin like gold is the fact that the US dollar and other fiat currencies are whipped into existence by banks with a fucking magic wand. That's what makes Bitcoin valuable, and what makes its price in those US dollars go up over time. And that, again, that is the aspect of it that makes it like gold. And gold would operate a lot better if it didn't have a whole bunch of derivatives and other bullshit cloaking what the true market spot price is for gold. You know, if you were to rate gold according to the actual costs associated with yielding it from the ground, it would not be $2,000. It would not be under $2,000 an ounce. It would be a lot more than that. But again, we have the derivative market to give us a price when we don't have gold. You know, there are rhythms in the volumes that are available because there's times of year where they just can't mine for gold, depending on where they are, of course. You know, if they're up there in Alaska, they got about a 4-month window that they can establish the ground that they're going to work. They can set up all their hardware, and they can start working it as soon as it stops raining enough. You know, but it's not something where they can do that 24/7, 12 months out of the year. Otherwise, we would have a continuous stream of gold from these places. And it's the same for other places in the planet. You know, like South America, they have their monsoon season. They can't work during that shit. That stuff's all underwater. But it's what makes the idea of trying to bring EFTs and those kind of things to cryptocurrency that makes me laugh. It's like those things are meant as price carries when you're having a drought in supply, you know. But where are you going to experience that drought in supply with something that's going 24/7, 365 in a deterministic way, and every 10 minutes is cashing out more coin? Anywho, I wanted to get into this one because we've talked about Argentina, and they've been kind of tipping on with regard to their peso. And we've seen this elsewhere too. We've seen this with Venezuela. We've seen this with Zimbabwe and Somalia. And I think Greece kind of had a little bit of a tumble. We had Portugal. We had Spain. And in all these places and all these times, we've seen people resort to cryptocurrency as a means to continue to transact, even in the midst of the issues that they're facing. And I believe that trend will continue. That something like this, what I'm about to read, will cause more people to be using cryptocurrencies than ever before. Anyway, this next one, this article I got here is on BBC.com. Argentina asks IMF to release $50 billion loan as crisis worsens. They're applying for a credit card in the middle of a monetary crisis. This is authored on August 30th, 2018. Argentina's government has unexpectedly asked for the early release of a $50 billion loan from the IMF amid a growing economic crisis. President Mauricio Macri said the move was designed to restore confidence in the Argentine economy. The Argentine peso has lost more than 40% of its value against the US dollar this year as inflation is rampant. The IMF confirmed on Wednesday it was looking to strengthen the arrangement and changing its phasing. Quote, I stressed my support for Argentina's policy efforts and our readiness to assist the government in developing its revised policy plans, Christine Lagarde, managing director of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, said in a statement. Investors are concerned Argentina may not be able to repay its heavy government borrowing and could default. Correspondents say the decision to speed up the IMF bailout smacks of growing desperation. When the terms of the loan were agreed in May, President Macri said he expected the economy to recover and did not plan to use the money. How did we get here? By Daniel Gallus and in Buenos Aires. So yes, penis. The world's highest interest rates and backing from the IMF have failed to reassure investors. The Argentine peso is still losing value despite all attempts to meet investor concerns. Other emerging markets such as Turkey and Brazil are also suffering from the devaluation of their currencies this year. But Argentina's situation is particularly troublesome. The country has not been able to lower inflation, which is the highest amongst G20 nations, and the government is failing to enact the economic reforms it promised the IMF, most of them aimed at curbing public spending and borrowing. President Macri was elected on the premise of reviving the economy, but so far it seems little progress has been made. Everyday life is getting more expensive for Argentines, as the prices of many goods and services still bear a close relation to the US dollar. And the combination of spiraling inflation and public spending cuts means wages are not keeping pace with prices, making most people poorer. What did the president say? Quote, "Over the last week, we have seen new expressions of lack of confidence in the markets, specifically over our financing capacity in 2019, Mr. Macri said in a televised address. Quote, "We have agreed with the International Monetary Fund to advance all the necessary funds to guarantee compliance with the financial program next year. This discussion aims to eliminate any uncertainty." He added that further measures to rein in government borrowing would accompany the move. What did his opponents say? Mr. Macri's decision to ask the IMF for help in May was criticized by many within his country. The IMF is widely loathed in Argentina and blamed for the country's 2001 economic collapse after it pulled the plug and denied financial support. The country's opposition blames Mr. Macri's center-right policies, including the end of capital controls and cuts to social programs, for the economic crisis. What is the IMF's view? Argentina, which has been plagued by economic problems for years, has asked for assistance from the IMF in May after its currency hit an all-time low. The country committed to tackle its double-digit inflation and cut public spending as part of the deal. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde said at the time that the plan had been designed by the Argentine government and was aimed at strengthening the economy for the benefit of all Argentines. After speaking to President Macri on Wednesday evening, she said that she had instructed her staff to work with the Argentine authorities to strengthen the agreed arrangement and re-examine the planned phasing. She also said she was confident, quote, "The strong commitment and determination of the authorities would be instrumental in steering the country through the difficult financial climate." Have we been here before? In 2001, Argentina's government defaulted on its debt and left the banking system largely paralyzed. The effect on Argentines was devastating, with many seeing their prosperity quickly disappear. Those who experienced it fear a return of government restrictions imposed back then to prevent a run on the banks. Under the constraints, which lasted for a year, people could not freely withdraw money from their accounts, making life very difficult for ordinary Argentines. Yeah. There you have it. I think that we're going to see let's check the comments here really quick. See if it'll load them. Oh, yeah, it is. Let's see here. Let's try out some of these comments. I'm always entertained by them. This first one is by Chaz on August 31st. This is a center-right problem. Macri decided to peg the currency by borrowing foreign currency, and this is the result. Let's see. This one I think is probably closer, but only by first impression here. It's by Oracle, August 30th. The oil price crashed in 2014, and the Venezuelan economy is solely dependent on oil, as it has been since the early 20th century. It has mainly been ruled by a rich right-wing elite that if that rich ruling elite had invested the wealth in diversifying the economy, Venezuela would be a much stronger economy. Instead, the rich bloated their wallets. It takes decades to diversify an economy. Yes and no. Let's see. Oracle's next one is China has been the world's economic miracle of the past 3 decades. It is a command economy with vast state investment. The difference between it and Venezuela: China has an unelected government and is not dependent on an oil price because it has a diverse economy. Nor does China have the USA interfering in its politics, and would laugh off economic sanctions and would retaliate if USA funded insurgency. Yeah, that's a big one right there. A big one. Let's see here. I'm trying to view through here and see if we can find another one by somebody else. That's good enough. Well, I think that Argentina is probably going to experience like a complete collapse unless things are to change with regard to Syria, Libya, Iraq, and a few other oil-producing countries. If Libya were to regain control over their oil production, and the same with Iraq, we would stop seeing their oil coming into the black and gray markets, and that would stop depreciating the value of oil. That's one of those things that people have not talked about, and I think I'm maybe one of the only people that have mentioned this, but every time we disrupt one of those governments, be it Iraq or Libya or Syria, what we're actually doing is those countries have costs associated with the oil. They have demand for the money that oil makes in their government. After they extract the oil out of the ground and they sell it, some of the money from the sale of the oil goes to running the government. And this is true of most oil-producing countries. But what's happened is, because of that, there's an associated cost with the oil, right? And so when Argentina or Iran or Iraq or any of these other guys want to sell some of their oil, they have an expected price because they have the cost of running their government associated with the oil. But if you take out the government, you A, don't have anybody controlling the flow, and B, don't have the costs associated with running a government. And this is what's been going on throughout the Middle East, is that we're basically getting the oil for free out of those places because it's just being stolen. I mean, you can put it any way you want, but that's really the case, that it's just being stolen. And there's been more than one case of Russia zapping entire what do you call them, convoys of oil. You know, they managed to catch it out there on a road while it's being exported illegally, and they just blow it the fuck up. You know, but Syria is starting to come under some sort of control. As a matter of fact, I read some article about Assad being basically victorious in Syria. And if that is the case, as Syria stabilizes, you are going to see the price of oil increase, because we're not going to be able to steal as much from him, because he's going to have that shit under lock and key, and we're not going to be having our proxies stealing it out the back door. So that's going to cause the supply to constrict, and thus the price to increase, because the demand isn't going to go down. You know, it's already pretty low, but I expect it to stay relatively high. But, you know, that'll be a good thing for all of these hyper oil dependent countries. Venezuela, if they saw a 20% uptick in the price of oil, their economy would be that much better, because they are that dependent on their oil revenues. You know, they do have a lot of hydroelectricity, and I wish they would go further in investing in that, because it would surely buttress a lot of the economic issues that they face when the price of oil goes off. If it's not directly impacting the keeping the lights on or anything like that, that's much less of a drag on their local economy, you know. And I've been hearing this for probably the last decade or so, that telecommunications companies and tech companies setting up in countries like Argentina and some countries throughout the Middle East that don't have internet connections, it's a lot easier for them to just set up the newest shit and get, 20 to 40 years of use out of it. Or maybe not that long, maybe like 10 years. But point being, getting the infrastructure established now is a lot easier than it was back in the day when they had to run cable. They can do all that shit wirelessly now. And so it's just a matter of having a local power source to power the wireless internet and a line of sight connection, and you're golden. If you can imagine how that's going to affect developing economies such as Argentina and other places over the next 5 to 10 years, you're not going to have most of the economic shocks that they suffer with the US dollar being the counterbalance to their resources. They're going to have other markets available to them where they'll get a better price for their oil. And I think that we're only beginning to see that now with cryptocurrencies, where, Turkey, from some estimates, 18% of their people own some Bitcoin. That's amazing. That's amazing. But what it tells you is that they sense an economic calamity coming with their monetary system, and they're saying, you know what, I want to hold on to some of my monetary value in something other than my local Turkish lira, because it's pretty obvious that this thing isn't going to be around much longer. And I don't want to get caught not being able to spend my money. But yeah, that's one of the pressures that we are going to see push more people into cryptocurrencies, is just their local government just losing their balls when it comes to their monetary policy. And people think that we're going to escape it here in the U.S. and in more developed economies, and we're not going to. We're just not. $100 oil impacts us in ways that a lot of people can't even fathom. But that's what'll be necessary for Venezuela, Argentina, all these countries that are highly dependent on their oil to be starting to see an actual profit on their oil instead of being subsidized by for the offset. And I expect really interesting things. For one thing, the plan for a new American century. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but it was a think tank back in the late 80s, early 90s that got together, and they were determining U.S. foreign policy, or at least a proposal for. And those of you who familiarized yourself with it by the late 90s understand that we've been following that as the framework, but there have been a few glitches, and one of them has been the popularity of the internet. That's kind of thrown those things off, just a teeny tiny. And it seems there's a lot of effort these days to further constrain access to the internet and maintaining secrecy on the internet. And I do expect these efforts to continue to fail, but it is interesting to see that there is an increase in such policy intent. And this next article here it's not really crypto related, but it is kind of crypto related. This is on RT.com. It's published September 3rd, 2018, and it does not have an author on it, but it is on RT.com. Five Eyes government spy ring seeks laws to make big tech companies share encrypted messages. A global research of intelligence agencies wants easier access to your private and encrypted messages. In a barely veiled warning to tech companies, it has promised to make things tough for those that don't comply. After a meeting on Australia's Gold Coast last week, ministers for the intelligence agencies of the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, known as the Five Eyes, have shared their vision for worldwide snooping in a joint statement. They're in the official communique, which we'll read directly after this, the ministers outline the importance of reading private messages in the fight against terrorism and crime, citing, quote, the urgent need for law enforcement to gain targeted access to data. The spy chiefs paid lip service to the importance of encryption for privacy purposes, but went on in another statement to call for increased powers to access private data. Tracking your files, they argue, is no more sinister than a patrol cop searching your vehicle or house, both of which are against the Fourth Amendment, by the way. Quote, privacy laws must prevent arbitrary or unlawful interference. But privacy is not absolute, they said. Yeah, it is. Under the Fourth Amendment, you can just go fuck off. Recognizing that some encrypted data can be nearly impossible to crack, the agency chiefs called on tech companies to turn over the keys voluntarily. Quote, the governments of the Five Eyes encourage information and communications technology service providers to voluntarily establish lawful access solutions to their products and services, reads the statement. And if the companies don't cooperate voluntarily, the Five Eyes have ways of making them talk. Stubborn companies may be hit with, quote, technological enforcement, legislative, or other measures. The agencies warned without elaborating on what those measures might be. With encryption methods growing ever more sophisticated, securing the cooperation, voluntary or otherwise, of tech companies makes the job of law enforcement and spy agencies that much easier. To that end, the ministers present at last week's meeting invited several senior digital industry representatives who did not accept the invitation. Exactly what kind of access the spy chiefs want is also unclear. It could involve developers turning over access to an individual user's messages when requested by law enforcement, or companies installing so-called backdoors into their hardware, which can be accessed at will by governments or law enforcement. Earlier this summer, U.S. lawmakers proposed legislation that would block the latter approach. A bipartisan bill introduced in the House of Representatives said that, quote, backdoors and otherwise secure products make Americans' data less safe, and they compromise the desirability of American goods overseas. God damn, somebody has half a fucking brain. The bill was introduced 2 years after the FBI threatened to take Apple to court in order to attempt to force the tech giant to create software to unlock an iPhone belonging to one of the shooters responsible for a massacre in San Bernardino, California. 1 day before the court hearing was scheduled, the FBI backed off as it had found an Israeli firm willing and able to crack the phone. The tech industry was divided on the case. Apple fought tooth and nail against the FBI, and the company said that America's founding fathers would be appalled by the invasion of privacy. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg supported Apple, as did renegade cybersecurity developer John McAfee. Microsoft CEO Bill Gates threw his support behind the FBI, saying he supported unlocking the phone in this, quote, specific case. Yeah, whatever, Bill. That's only because you're a fucking idiot. Oh, sorry. With the Five Eyes set to put the squeeze on tech companies again, those in the industry will once again have to choose where they stand on the liberty versus security spectrum. Yeah, okay. Look, the U.S. economy right now is pretty much dependent on these companies. I mean, Apple is like the most valuable company in the entire world, and these guys are threatening them. It's like, fuck you. You know, do you want the messages from when your wife was banging somebody else while you were abroad? Because we can provide those. Matter of fact, we can post those on your Facebook. Would you like that, officer? Jesus Christ. Anyway, I got this communique. We'll go ahead and divest it before we get any further into music this evening. And this one is on homeaffairs.gov.au. So this is Australia. Continuing on. 5-country ministerial 2018. Official communique. Number 1. We, the Homeland Security, Public Safety, and Immigration Ministers of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom and the United States, met on the Gold Coast, Australia, on August 28th and 29th, 2018, to discuss how we can better collaborate to meet our common security challenges. We reaffirmed that the close and enduring 5-country partnership developed following the Second World War remains fundamental to the security and prosperity of our nations. Number 2. The 2018 5-country ministerial, FCM, which in previous years has achieved advancements in information and intelligence sharing on border protection and counterterrorism, has matured to become a preeminent forum for collaboration among the 5 countries on domestic security issues. This year's FCM meeting recalibrated the forum to focus on tangible deliverables and practical collaboration on counterterrorism, counter-violent extremism, cybersecurity, countering foreign interference, protecting critical infrastructure, border management, and law enforcement. A free, open, safe, and secure internet. Number 3. The internet and digital technologies are increasingly central to contemporary life and to the social and economic development of our societies. Global connectivity enables faster communication, better access to services, and new ways to conduct business and share news and information. We affirmed our vision for a free, open, safe, and secure internet, which is fundamental to our economic growth and prosperity. Just as the internet provides many benefits, it also provides opportunities for people to carry out crimes and spread illicit content, terrorism, child sex abuse and exploitation, violent extremism, coercive acts of interference, and disinformation are enduring concerns of government. The anonymous, instantaneous, and networked nature of the online environment has magnified these threats and opened up new vectors for harm. Governments have a responsibility to protect those within our borders against both physical and digital threats to ensure that the rule of law prevails online as it does offline. We have a responsibility to tackle these challenges in a coordinated and effective way. Number 5. While senior digital industry representatives did not accept our invitation to participate in discussions on pressing issues regarding the illicit use of online spaces, we reiterated the need for the digital industry to take more responsibility for content promulgated and communicated through their platforms and applications. We agreed to a joint statement on countering the illicit use of online spaces, outline our community's high expectations of digital industry companies, with a focus on countering online child sexual abuse and exploitation, and violent extremists and terrorist material. We called for the further development and expansion of capabilities to prevent upload of illicit content and to execute urgent and immediate takedowns. We reiterated the importance of industry investment in human and automated detection capabilities, underscoring the need for major companies to set industry standards and to help smaller companies deploy these capabilities to their platforms, including through the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, GIFT, and we called for increased efforts to counter foreign interference and disinformation conducted via online platforms. Yeah, whatever. We also undertook to enhance feedback loops between government and industry on intelligence and information, including trends and sources of illicit content, with the aim of more comprehensively responding to malicious actors online to facilitate faster identification and removal of illicit content, and increase public awareness of these sources of disinformation and other forms of malicious foreign interference. Countering the threat of terrorism. Number 7. Globalized terrorist networks and violent extremists pose a real and unabating threat to our communities. Because you're funding them, asshole. Ongoing efforts to bring about the decline and depletion of terrorist networks operating in the Middle East have created new risks as many foreign terrorist fighters return to their countries of origin or move to other regions, disseminating their capabilities. We committed to the expanded sharing of information about known or suspected terrorists between our national security and border protection agencies, reiterating that the detection of international movements of terrorists and their associates relies on the rapid sharing of information between partners. We reaffirmed that alerts and intelligence relating to the movement of known and suspected terrorists will be shared between all 5 partners quickly and effectively. And we committed to continue our cooperation to support effective whole of government efforts to identify where domestic laws allow, prosecute returning foreign terrorist fighters, and share best practices for rehabilitating and reintegrating their family members. Yeah, in other words, if you don't like the totalitarian nature of your government, we'll define you as a terrorist and re-educate your kids and family. Number 8. Building on the framework for cooperation in the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2396, we committed to work together to build the capability of other states in border security and measures to monitor, screen, track, and share information on returning foreign terrorist fighters and local terrorist networks. The aviation environment continues to be seen as a high-value target by terrorists and criminal networks. We committed to establish a new group, the Aviation Security 5, to better share information about emerging threats in the aviation sector and support existing fora to raise global standards for aviation security. Cybersecurity and resilience of critical infrastructure. Number 9. The increasingly digitized and networked nature of all aspects of our economies and societies means that cybersecurity and resilience is of the highest priority. The cyber domain is a vector for threats posed by hostile state actors, criminals, terrorist networks, and hacktivists. A cyber attack is an attack on our communities and our sovereignty. Yeah, whatever. We affirmed our collective resolve to deter malicious cyber activity, including improving domestic resilience and coordinating technical attribution and operational response policies to mitigate significant cyber incidents. We agreed to further strengthen connectivity between our CyberWatch offices to enhance shared 24/7 monitoring of hostile cyber activity. Number 10. We committed to work together to protect critical infrastructure and support the development of secure critical infrastructure supply chains that are advanced, affordable, reliable, and trusted. We overtook the share risk assessments and certification practices on supply chains to underpin the continued resilience of our respected cyber networks and prepare for new and emerging technologies. Migration and border management. Oh, hold on one second. I just want to rehydrate here for a moment. Migration and border management. Number 11. The interconnection and interdependence of our economies and communities manifests in increasing volumes of people and goods moving across borders. Facilitating legitimate movement of people and goods is essential to our economy's prosperity. The 5 countries are at the forefront of emerging border technologies, with a history of driving new technologies to simultaneously enhance border security and achieve faster movement of lawful travelers and goods. We committed to work together with industry to build the touchless border at ports of entry for legitimate travelers and trade. We agreed to a strategy to leverage our investments in emerging technologies, including digitization and artificial intelligence, to improve facilitation and mitigate risks through real-time intelligence and information sharing while protecting privacy. Yeah, whatever. Number 12. Collectively, we are among the most generous countries on Earth in terms of humanitarian aid and refugee resettlement. You're doing a fucking bang-up job with that in the fucking EU, I gotta tell you, man. Given the increasing volume of irregular movements, resettlement alone will not solve the problem. We must work with government partners, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector to build capacity in countries of origin and their regions. We acknowledge the importance of safe and legal migration and asylum pathways and migrants' awareness of these pathways, and reaffirmed the positive benefits of their managed migration, settlement, and integration bring to our societies. We also reaffirmed our commitment to coordinated global action to respond to large and irregular movements. We reiterated the sovereign right and responsibility of states to strong border management, consistent with international non-refoulement obligations, to deter and detect those who seek to evade border controls, and we reaffirmed the responsibility of all states to accept the return of their nationals, agreeing to increase cooperation to support timely and effective removals of non-citizens who have no right to remain in our countries, including consideration of joint consequences. We committed to strengthen efforts to combat the scourge of modern slavery, forced labor, and human trafficking, which devastate the lives of the most vulnerable across the globe. We undertook to establish a senior officials task force to develop concrete measures to tackle these problems, including promoting transparency in global supply chains and developing common approaches to engage industry on trafficking facilitated through the internet and other digital technologies. The task force will report back to ministers in the first quarter of 2019. We further agreed to consolidate and strengthen intelligence sharing, investigative and enforcement efforts, including deploying sophisticated national capabilities to local law enforcement. We reaffirmed the need to collectively manage migration flows through the utilization of enhanced screening technologies, and sharing intelligence, and more effectively reaching into new sources of data consistent with civil liberty protections, including social media, to ensure foreign nationals who would do us harm cannot cross our borders. We agreed to enhance collaboration on targeting, analysis, and disruption operations to counter organized threats to our border and national security. The joint meeting of FCM and Quintet of Attorneys General. On 29th August, we were joined by our ministerial colleagues who met as the Quintet of Attorneys General. Together we discussed emerging issues and collaboration in countering foreign interference, the challenges posed by ubiquitous encryption, criminal information sharing, and addressing the financing of transnational crime and terrorism. Countering foreign interference. Oh, Jesus. If only that ever worked, right? 16. We condemn foreign interference being the coercive, deceptive, and clandestine activities of foreign governments, actors, and their proxies to sow discord, manipulate public discourse, bias the development of policy, and disrupt markets for the purpose of undermining our nations and our allies. Foreign interference threatens a nation's sovereignty, values, and national interests. It can limit or shape the polity's ability to make independent judgments. Erode public... Yeah, of course. You know, when you're getting feedback from the people that you're bombing, it's a lot harder to bomb them. Sorry, that's just the fact. Erode public confidence in our political and government institutions and interfere with private sector decision making. We agreed the 5 countries would work collectively to counter foreign interference, protect our individual sovereignty, and ensure our values and interests are upheld. We agreed to draw upon the strengths of our cohesive societies, our public and private institutions, and our global partnerships to reduce the risk that foreign interference poses to domestic and global prosperity and stability. We committed to establish a mechanism for the 5 countries to share developments in our respective approaches to confronting the foreign interference challenge. we undertook to share information on foreign interference activities with a view to advancing our collective knowledge of how to counter such threats in the event of a severe foreign interference incident within our sovereign nations. We agreed the 5 countries would coordinate on appropriate responses and attribution. Yeah. Encryption. Number 18. Encryption is vital to the digital economy, a secure cyberspace, and the protection of personal, commercial, and government information. The 5 countries have no interest or intention to weaken encryption mechanisms. We recognize, however, that encryption, including end-to-end encryption, is also used to conduct of terrorist and criminal activities. The ability of intelligence and law enforcement agencies to lawfully access encrypted data and communications poses challenges to law enforcement agencies' efforts to protect our communities. Therefore, we agreed to the urgent need for law enforcement to gain targeted access to data subject to strict safeguards, legal limitations, and respective domestic consultations. You know what, dude? I've seen the product of your information sharing policies, and you know what it looks like to me? It looks like Americans treated as quote-unquote the enemy under suspicion that they may be the enemy until you're able to establish that they're not quote-unquote the enemy. Give me a fucking break. Therefore, we agreed to the urgent need for law enforcement to gain targeted access to data subject to strict safeguards. Strict safeguards, my ass! You're already using Razor Shark that it acts like a fucking what do you call it? A cell phone tower. Or what is it? Is that Razor Shark or something like that? But anyway, there's this device, and it makes the police car basically into a cell phone tower, and your phone will default to it so that they can capture all your fucking your shit that's going on your phone without your knowledge or consent. It's so against the Fourth Amendment. I have no fucking idea why they have something like that, but here they are talking about strict safeguards and legal limitation. Bullshit! That shit is so fucking far into violating my privacy and and the security of my private communications. Give me a fucking break. Continuing on. Legal limitations and respective domestic consultations. We have agreed to a statement of principles on access to evidence and encryption that sets out a framework for discussion with industry on resolving the challenges to lawful access posed by encryption while respecting human rights and fundamental freedoms. Yeah, whatever. Criminal information sharing. Number 19. Increasing interconnection between serious and organized crime networks have globalized threats such as drugs, cybercrime, child exploitation, and financial crimes. Reaffirming our commitment to sharing criminal and law enforcement information, we tasked our senior officials to convene an extraordinary meeting of operational and policy agencies with responsibility for law enforcement, border protection, and criminal justice. Drawing on the work of the Five Eyes Law Enforcement Group, the Border Five, the Migration Five, the meeting will advise ministers on the necessary enhancements to information sharing and collaboration to support more effective responses to serious criminal threats, beneficial ownership, and illicit finance. Number 20. We agreed to support G20 and Financial Action Task Force (FATF) efforts to combat illicit finance by increasing the transparency of legal persons and arrangements and enabling timely access to beneficial ownership information by law enforcement agencies. We also agreed to encourage collaboration between Five Eyes financial intelligence units to enhance the sharing of intelligence and experience. We also agreed to work closely with the private sector to promote the adequate and accurate collection of beneficial ownership information. Conclusion. Number 21. We affirmed today that the importance of the five-country partnership in addressing complex homeland and national security challenges. Our history of cooperation, our shared values, and our enduring friendship provide solid foundations to face the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century together. We are committed to building on this past cooperation and together pledge the commitments made today. Yeah. This is another one of those things where they talk about this, and then as soon as they try even like a beta implementation of it, they end up putting some of their own relatives in jail. And then they go, oh, well, maybe that's not such a good idea. Maybe we got to back off on that, because obviously we can't blanketly apply this thing, and so it's not exactly fair. Yeah, but as far as how this thing will go, I don't really see it going anywhere. To me, this is the kind of noises you make when it's all about to fall apart, and you're trying to give yourself and your friends some sort of reassurance that no, it's not all going to shit, and yes, we're going to be able to carry it forward just fine, just the way we have been. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I was just wanting to play some Prong, and I've got Carved into Stone on. I think it's appropriate. So let's go with it. Prong, Carved into Stone, here on Coin Metal. Yeah, I was going to let it roll for one more, but I think I could get in at least one more article. Somebody's been trying to get me to, Corn Red BC, has been trying to get me to play something, and all the stuff he's requesting, or she, as the case may be, no indication of penis or no there. None of the requests he or she has made have been anything that I actually have. So, yeah. Anyway, I do have a few articles left, and this one I'm kind of concerned about because I don't know. It seems to me kind of weird implementations to be putting on keys and such. And this one's on coinspeaker.com, and it was authored on September 4th. So apparently got this one from the future, 5 a.m. UTC. And this is by Bishan Akalar. Let's check something really quick. Ah, yes! Penis. Bitcoin Core software upgrade to bring a range of new features. And I gotta wonder on this one, doesn't it matter whether or not the miners decide to implement it? Anyway, continuing on. The new features mainly focus on improving Bitcoin Core's default wallet, its integration with hardware wallets, and improving the way private keys are stored. As the Bitcoin Core software infrastructure is currently undergoing through a transitional phase while implementing high-end scalability solutions, developers are preparing for the 17th major software release. The upcoming software update will host a range of new features, especially emphasizing on improving the software's default wallet and the storage of Bitcoin private keys. introducing a, quote, new language. Peter Wheel, the popular developer of the Bitcoin infrastructure known for important implementations like segregated witness, which only about 40% of people actually use. And actually, I think the number is much lower than that, but the people inflate it. Anyway, continuing on. Has proposed the idea of implementing a new language with the next Bitcoin Core software upgrade. The basic purpose of this language introduction is to add additional information to the keys. Andrew Chow, a Bitcoin Core contributor calls this a, quote, sane alternative to the earlier, quote, present account system. The language feature allows users to label their different accounts, with one being savings and the other as, quote, donations. Moreover, another significant advantage of introducing language is that it makes sure that the information loss doesn't take place regularly while moving keys from one wallet to another. Whatever. John Newberry, a chain code engineer, says that Wheel's language feature has changed the way we think of wallet security by introducing tags in the form of, quote, label to unlock the secret key. Oh, wonderful! We're putting locks on the secret keys now. I wonder who's going to hold the key for that. Partially signed Bitcoin transactions. Oh, wow. This is another important change arriving with the software upgrade. PSBT, as the name suggests, is a new format which allows transactions to pass through before being added to the network. In the long run, PSBT could prove to be a game changer, believes the Bitcoin Core developers. Currently, hardware wallets like Trezor and Ledger are considered to be the safest way to store Bitcoins, as they can be unlocked offline, thereby protecting the keys against online thefts. However, one limitation of the hardware wallet is in terms of software engagement, as they aren't compatible with the different software. Ergo, Trezor only supports software wallet Electrum and not others like Bitcoin Core. Users have found this to be a bit clumsy and annoying thing. However, BIP 174 standard provides a formidable solution while supporting different hardware wallets. The code is not yet out, but if in future hardware wallets adopt this standard, it will make it easy for users to connect to the Bitcoin Core software. In a word with CoinDesk, Andrew Chow said that Bitcoin Core will rather provide a much safer way to use Bitcoin instead of other third-party software wallets. What the fuck is this? Continuing, PSBT will enable Bitcoin Core to more easily support hardware wallets and have better offline air-gapped wallet setups. I'm actually working on hardware wallet support for Bitcoin Core by using PSBT. SPV wallets carry privacy and potential security risks, as they are trusting a third party to do the blockchain verification. Once Bitcoin Core supports hardware wallets, users can use Bitcoin Core instead, and because it is a full node, the user does not need to trust a third party that the everything has been verified correctly. That doesn't sound right. Fuck Bitcoin Core. How about the network? Chow said that the code change implementing PSBT will give a boost to the Bitcoin privacy features and smart contracts. PSBT also makes things like multi-sigs and coin joins easier to do, Chow stated. Dynamic wallet creation. This is one more important feature for which the developers of Bitcoin Core are pretty much excited about, Chow said. Quote, a few releases ago, we introduced the ability to use multiple wallets in Bitcoin Core. However, that required starting Bitcoin Core configured for multiple wallets. Now, we can load, unload, and create wallets when the software is already running. Additional features of the software update shall be available with the final release. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it. Why do you need additional security on the keys? And really, what is so hard about scanning a fucking wallet? Scan the goddamn QR code. What's so difficult about that? I don't understand people who say that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are hard to deal with regard to like QT wallets and shit like that. They are not at all difficult to operate. I mean, really, it's like you open the wallet, you see the amount that you have available, you compare it to the amount that the person is asking for the product, you scan the fucking QR code that they have for their public address, you enter in the amount that they're asking, and you click send, and it goes to them. What is so difficult about that? Why is that so difficult to understand? I really don't get it. I really don't. You know, and so needing to apply additional functionality like a lock on the private key, fuck you. Again, who's going to be holding the key for that? I don't know. I would have to review the documentation on it to decide whether or not I think it's actually worthwhile. I don't know. I'm from the school of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And yeah, I see a lot of what's going on with regard to development on coins to just be a bunch of fucking wasted time. You know, you guys ought to be developing markets for this shit, not new software implementations to further mess with the code. Fuck it. Leave it as it is. Although I should note that they're about 90% done with the code base revision for Verge currency, so that ought to be pretty interesting when it comes out. Anyway, I got one more article for today, and this one is kind of interesting because there's been an ongoing debate concerning this, and I honestly think that by the time the November fork is supposed to happen, that it probably won't actually happen. That the community at large will basically come to a consensus that the proposed changes aren't actually needed for the moment, and that waiting a little bit longer to see how things flesh out, which with regard to the market, to see whether or not there's actually a need for additional block space. However, it is worth noting that the Bitcoin Cash Network did something like 2 million transactions over a 24-hour period. That's pretty fucking impressive. It's a lot more than the Bitcoin network does. Anyway, continuing on, I got this article on altcointoday.com. Two exchanges publish contingency plans for November Bitcoin Cash fork. Exchanges begin to announce fork plans. Two exchanges have announced their plans concerning the Bitcoin Cash fork planned for November 15th. Over the past few weeks, Bitcoin Cash proponents, developers, and miners have been discussing the fork coming up, but there's been a disagreement over the changes. The Bitcoin ABC development team has a different hard fork plan than nChain's new client, Bitcoin SV. Essentially, if the hash power decided to choose both versions, there could be some incompatibilities and a blockchain split with no replay protection. However, some members of the community wholeheartedly believe there won't be a split, some believe there will, and one chain will die off rather quickly, and others think things could end up like Ethereum network fork, which also had no replay protection, but both chains remained. CoinEx, the first exchange to real fork contingency plans. With all that's happening, and even though the fork is still about 2.5 months away, 2 exchanges have come forward with their plans for the fork. BitAsiaX and CoinEx. The first exchange is often one of the largest Bitcoin Cash exchanges by volume because it offers Bitcoin Cash trading pairs and was launched by the firm via BTC. CoinEx says nChain has recently announced the client Bitcoin SV, and the exchange considers it an altered version of the Bitcoin Cash protocol. Following this statement, the firm explains it will do a snapshot of all Bitcoin Cash assets held on the trading platform on November 15th, and everyone will get a 1-to-1 ratio if there is a split. Bitcoin SV, BSV, is the altered version of Bitcoin Cash protocols. BSV is likely to bring a potential fork of Bitcoin Cash by causing incompatibility with Bitcoin Cash network and therefore create a new cryptocurrency asset, Bitcoin SV, token BSV, the exchange states. CoinEx says the company is a, quote, responsible cryptocurrency trading platform and has to take some precautions before the fork. Much like with previous forks, CoinEx explains what the management team will do going forward. However, emphasizes it will not support BSV deposit and withdraw until its chain is stabilized and all supporting services, ergo wallets, are available. In addition to this statement, the company promises to protect assets with the help from the mining pool via BTC, CoinEx states. Together with the via BTC mining pool, CoinEx will guard your assets even if there's no replay protection. BitAsiaX will give the chain with the most work the BCH ticker. The following day on September 2nd, the trading platform BitAsiaX also announced its plans for the November fork. According to the exchange, there are a lot of development teams coding for Bitcoin Cash, such as BU, XT, and ABC, and they also welcome new teams like SV. As of right now, they've not heard any known team intending to fork the chain. For controversial escalation of agreements, BitAsiaX recommends that the community work closely for suitable resolutions, such as minor vote for each individual upgrade item, rather than a direct fork which disagrees with each other, explains the exchange's statement. BitAsiaX remains neutral and has no intention to influence this matter. BitAsiaX will monitor the situation very closely. If there is a fork happening come November, BitAsiaX will be well prepared, and all Bitcoin Cash holders will receive new forked coin with corresponding amounts. In regards to the Bitcoin Cash ticker, the BCH ticker, the trading platform explains that a branch with replay protection will be renamed, and this will be followed by the, quote, most chain work principle for Bitcoin Cash, the most chain work since August 1st, 2017, will be entitled to the name Bitcoin Cash. nChain CEO. The winning chain will compete for votes under Nakamoto consensus. Both CoinGeek and nChain have made statements concerning the CoinEx announcement in particular. In regard to the exchange calling Bitcoin SV an altered version of Bitcoin Cash, the firm CoinGeek believes CoinEx should define the Bitcoin ABC client in the same manner. The reason the firm believes this is because the ABC client also introduces, quote, an altered set of protocols, according to a recent CoinGeek article. Then on Sunday, nChain's CEO, Jimmy Nguyen, detailed this to his Twitter followers that new client has no intentions of creating a new coin. Quote, Bitcoin SV does not intend to fork off from Bitcoin Cash nor create a new coin/token. Instead, the Bitcoin SV node provides a clear Bitcoin Cash implementation choice for miners who support Bitcoin's original vision. It will compete for miner votes under Nakamoto consensus to be the winning Bitcoin Cash chain, Nguyen notes. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that your PR team, i.e. Craig Wright, has done a lot to put a negative light on your implementation. And your continued association with him is really probably doing you no favors. So, you got a couple months to figure it out. But, I mean, it won't be too long before he's blocking some of the members of your team and so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't think the man plays well with others, and I really don't expect nChain to retain an association with him, especially with the rest of the Bitcoin Cash community basically turning a deaf ear to the guy. And I think it's unfortunate, but at some point you do have to recognize that some people are intentionally being divisive and toxic with no other real service being served other than their own ego. The right that the fact that they are telling you to fuck off is like strong enough for them, and it's good enough for them, and that they expect that should be good enough for you too. And I don't think that's the case. I don't respond well to being told to fuck off. And as I said on Twitter to a few other people, it's like, if that guy's representing Bitcoin Cash, I'm not entirely certain that I want to be associating with Bitcoin Cash, because his practice is to block people, when at the slightest criticism or question, and not even rude questions or nasty questions or rude assertions or innuendos or anything like that. Just basic questions. I mean, if you can't sustain the most basic questions about your project without having to block people, then that really draws into question what exactly, who are you serving? It doesn't seem like you're going to be trying to serve me, because you don't even want to hear from me. So, I mean, if you don't want to hear from me and you don't want to serve me, why the fuck am I going to support your coin or your network? And so, like I said, a lot of the bigger players in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem have been rejecting him, and honestly, I'd like to see some of the development teams, or at least the one that we know for certain is behind him, to also disassociate themselves, because, like I said, it's not doing their image any good. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like you to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else will do it for you. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate your support. You can find me on Twitter. I'll have this episode up on YouTube as quickly as humanly possible, as I have been. And you can also find me in the Telegram for Verge Currency, and also the Discord for Verge Currency. I think that's Discord. All right. Well, it is with that we've got to select our last dance, and we have not done that yet. And let's see, what kind of time do we got? Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, we can do that. Let's go ahead and throw it down. Big Truck by Coal Chamber, Last Dance, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.